the alley-oops at Keysar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Really excited about this episode. Going to be talking about tight ends in the NFL draft and tight ends that the 49ers could go ahead and add to their roster. Thank you all for joining me for this episode, and the draft is on its way. The 49ers tight ends, they've pretty much brought back the same guys. They got Ross Dwelley, they got Charlie Warner, and they got George Kittle, but they're definitely going to be addressing tight end in this draft because it is plentiful. There are so many really good tight ends in this draft. I've heard some people say maybe there's not first round talent, but you know what? In a draft where the 49ers don't have a first or second round pick, there's plenty of draft picks available that they can go after. So we're going to be talking about tight ends in this episode, getting into who exactly the 49ers can target. Now, there's going to be some guys we wish they could get, because they would have made a lot of sense, but they're moving up draft boards or are going to be incapable for the 49ers to reach out to. So as we go through these, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into break down every single tight end that the 49ers may come across. And let's talk about some of the guys up top the 49ers have absolutely no chance to get, but they're very spectacular players. Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame, a really good football player. Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Dalton Kincaid, probably my favorite tight end in the draft. He's going to be going in the first or second round, so he won't be available. More than likely early too. Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State, another really good player. Tucker Kraft, he's going to be a solid player. Sam Laporta, spectacular. If you would have been talking Sam Laporta 2 months ago, you would have thought he had an opportunity to be a San Francisco 49er, but after his combine performance at the end of February, there is probably no way that Sam Laporta is going to make it to the 49ers comp pick at pick 99 at the end of the third round. So Sam Laporta will not be an option for the 49ers unless they're willing to trade up. And with the depth at tight end, the depth at the position, I don't see them trading up to get a tight end. So Laporta more than likely would have been a great fit for the 49ers. At 6'3", 245, running that 4.59, coming out of Iowa, being akin to George Kittle, but it's not going to happen. So where do we start the list? Well, I think it starts with Michigan's tight end Luke Schoonmaker, and you can see him over there in the Tron there on the side. Schoonmaker is 6'5", 251 pounds out of Michigan. He's a pretty solid player. He can do both block and catch the football. His 40 time was 4.63 seconds. So pretty good speed for a tight end, especially a guy, that blocks in this area. But also his three cone is one of the best, 6.81. That's in the top 95 percentile. So you got a guy that can move very quickly. And that's something that Kyle Shanahan loves when it comes to players that are going to be receiving threats for him. We've heard it primarily with wide receivers, but the same thing with tight ends. He's very good at it. So he's a guy the 49ers could definitely add. Now, could he improve in the blocking game? Yes. He's not a guy that is fantastic at blocking, but you got to like his frame, the way he's able to potentially put on more weight, I think is something that the 49ers could look into. That could help him get more strength to be able to block inline. I think there could be concern right now with him being an inline blocker in the NFL, but he's pretty good. He's got good hands. And you can count on him to catch the football. He does a very good job of absorbing hits when he catches the ball over the middle. I think the good thing with him, too, is you don't see him ducking. You don't see him hiding from the football. He goes in there and he makes catches. So that's why he looked good. And then we talked earlier about the short area quickness. I think that's something I liked about him. So to me, it was all about watching this guy be able to create separation, use his body, his willingness to make tackles without fear. I think those are things that I really like from Luke Schoonmaker. Now, will he be available there? He could be available there. Part of the reason he could be available there is he's not a real threat to take the top off the defense. When you're playing the San Francisco 49ers, you have to worry about Ross Dwelley getting a little bit behind people. He's got that ability. George Kittle can definitely do it. That's not something that Schoonmaker does. And also, how much of the route tree can he run? Is it something he could develop into? I think those are question marks surrounding Schoonmaker. But I think when you're talking about a guy that could be available for the 49ers in the comp pick area, or even, depending on how he is looked at amongst the league, I would give him a 4th-round grade. So it would be a little bit of a reach there at the end of the 3rd. I mean, it's basically 4th, right? But yeah, Schoonmaker will be probably available there, and the 49ers could definitely go in there and attack Luke Schoonmaker. Next on the list is going to be Josh Weil. Josh Weil out of Cincinnati is one of my favorite tight ends in the draft because his receiving ability. It's just so fun to watch. You see the fluidity, the smoothness, catches the football, gets upfield, can create with the ball in his hands. I don't know if I can put my finger exactly on who he reminds me of, because even though with his height and things, you start thinking about Travis Kelce, you start thinking about Rob Gronkowski, but he doesn't lumber like Gronkowski. He's smoother like Kelce, but I don't want to put that comparison on him. But 6'6", 240 pounds, out of Cincinnati, ran a little bit slower in the 40 than I anticipated, running a 4.69. I thought he would be a little bit quicker, and I think if he was a little bit quicker, we'd be talking about him probably in the middle of the second to late third, to the early 3rd round. So it's a guy that got some ability. 3-cone wasn't spectacular, slower than Schoonmaker, so short area quickness, I'm not there. But when this guy stretches his legs and starts running, he looks pretty good. His 10-yard split is pretty good. I like that. And some of the numbers that I like about him, are the things he does catching the ball and quarterback rating when target is a 108.9. I like that about him. So to me, he's a guy that I like. I like the way he uses different techniques to be able to get open. He runs his routes at different speeds, accelerates out of them. So he does a really good job of keeping defenders guessing. I like his length. We talked about 6'6". With that 6'6" length also comes, not just the long legs, but long arms. Those can be used to create separation as well, to be able to kind of push guys off and stuff like that. So to me, he is a very talented player. I think one of the things with a guy like that you worry about with the size and height, worry about coordination, but he's very coordinated. He looks comfortable. He looks smooth when he's running. He doesn't look herky jerky. I think that's what I like about him. And then he can catch contested catches. I mean, he does a very good job of going up and getting the football. I'm not sure the 49ers, besides George Kittle, have really had a tight end that could do that. Jordan Reed was probably a guy, but very limited snaps for the 49ers in 2020. So the 49ers are looking for a guy that could do that. I think he's really good at going from receiver to runner, and that always fits the Kyle Shanahan system. The question marks are, how is he going to be blocking? I think that's one of the things I'm worried about is what Josh Weil would look like as an inline blocker. Now, would he be asked to do that a lot in year one? That's a good question. If the 49ers draft one tight end in Weil, they could still leave Charlie Warner on the team and he could handle the blocking. But I think the 49ers really are looking with this tight end room to translate to a tight end that could do both. A tight end that can go ahead and be a fear not only in the passing game but also blocking and keep these defenses really guessing. I think that's important, for the San Francisco 49ers, is to make sure that they're keeping these guys off balance. Because right now, when Ross Dwelly's in, you're looking past. He's just not a great blocker. And then when you have Charlie Warner in, he's probably blocking. He's not a threat in the passing game. And then even when he is, it seems like the quarterback misses him when he's wide open or he drops the ball. So upgrade is definitely necessary. And I think Josh Weil would be a huge upgrade in the passing department, but he would need to upgrade his run blocking. And I don't think that's, too much different than what we got from Schoonmaker as well. So both of those guys are there available with that comp pick in the 3rd round. The 49ers are looking to go tight end early with their picks. That would definitely be a location to do it. Next up for the 49ers potentially could be Cameron Latu from Alabama, 6'4", 242 pounds. Found him to be a pretty consistent receiver for Alabama. Now, he doesn't have the ideal height or, weight. 3-cone, not great. So as far as, those sorts of things, he's not coming out as one of those guys you ultimately think you can get. He has very, very good hands. They're strong, very competitive. So I think that, when it comes to making catches, he's a good, very good. I think that's one of the things you worry about Charlie Warner. But also his get off is super good. The way he has balance, he can get clean releases. And from a tight end, a lot of it is release. If you can get off that linebacker, off that safety, whoever's playing against you, you have the ability to create separation and get open. The other thing with him is with Latu is he's able to break tackles and get extra yards. And we know how exciting that is for that tight end room and what's expected with George Kittle in the room. You're looking for tight ends that can extend plays, get extra yardage, fight for that, and Latu can do that. I think he's one of those guys that's good at getting the ball away from defensive backs as well. Contested catches are not a problem for him. That's why I like him. I think I would give him a fourth round grade. He could easily slide in the fifth round. I don't think I would blink an eye. And if he was there, in the fifth round, I think that's where you kind of start looking for him. So to me, he's a guy that can make spectacular catches. He can do a lot in the receiving game. I think that there's areas where he can improve, though. He needs to get a little bit better when going against zone coverage. Not very comfortable at sitting down, finding voids in the defense, and doing that. And he's a definite liability blocking right now. He's got to get better at blocking. He plays too high, so then that causes him to get overpowered. Got to be able to get his pad level low, be able to get under these guys. He will not be able to block inline in the NFL right away, which means he may not be a target for the 49ers, especially that high. But if he was to fall into the fifth or sixth round, like we kind of talked about earlier, the 49ers could definitely strike on him in those categories. So he's an option for the 49ers. I don't think he would be someone they would want to target in the third round. With there being no fourth round pick, the most likelihood would be the fifth round where they got 3 picks. They could possibly go with Cameron Latu if he was there. But you got to know what you're getting, right? Probably an upgrade from Ross Dwelley in the passing game, but a very similar blocker. Where Ross Dwelley's competed in the NFL, so he has an idea. Latu would definitely be somebody that is learning to get better. So who's up next for the 49ers? Well, I'll tell you who. Will Mallory. And Will Mallory is, if you've been listening to this channel, one of my favorite tight ends in the entire draft. I like him a lot. He's out of Miami, 6'4", 239, and the fastest tight end that was at the combine. He ran a 4.55, so you can see the speed, a lot of ability. To me, this is a guy that fits what the 49ers wanted to. Size, speed-wise. He could probably put on a little bit of extra weight, which I expect him, to do. But he measured, through the roof. He's just is one of those guys that's got a lot of ability, and I think the 49ers are going to like him. And what are the things I like about him? Well, the first thing I like is that he has the ability to break tackles. But he gets the football, he always gets upfield and makes plays. And I think even before the combine is where I saw the speed. He was able to get on the sideline and outrun some safeties down the sideline. I was like, wow, got a lot more speed than I thought. Also, he's a chain mover. He catches the ball, he converts, gets first downs. So you add that to George Kittle, and that's big. Or George Kittle needs to come out. You could count on Will Mallory to be able to get those plays. Plus, he's as fast as George Kittle. Those guys share the same speed, so makeup-wise, they make sense. Where Mallory has to improve, of course, is in the blocking game. He does not block like George Kittle, but I think that's going to be an expectation from that room. Not that he can't, it's that he hasn't been able to do it at a high level right now. 49ers could definitely coach that up. Oh, things that are really good about him, though, his burst off the snap is good. He finds ways to he's just wide open a lot of times. And then he always catches the ball with his hands, which I like. When he's got the football in his hands, he's very good runner. He's got good vision. He does things in the open field that the 49ers really, really do and really, really need. So I like him. I like his ability. I think he could help on special teams as well. He's got great hands, which, gives him the ability to make some spectacular catches. And sometimes you just need a guy that can help your quarterback out. So I like him a lot. I think he's a solid option for the 49ers. And in fact, I would take him as high as those comp picks in the third round, even though I think he will be available in the fifth. And so it could be one of those things like George Kittle, a third round grade, but you end up taking him in the fifth. Will Mallory would make a lot of sense for those type of things. It's just, for me, I wonder how good of a blocker he will be. But as far as a pass catcher, he's through the roof as far as his ability. So Will Mallory's a star player for me. We know star player means, number one, they fit the 49er scheme. Number two, There's somebody that I think the 49ers would benefit highly from drafting. He's one of my favorite guys in the entire draft. So next up is a guy that's been on a lot of people's minds, and that is Zach Koontz. And why is Zach Koontz on everyone's mind? Well, he's out of Old Dominion. Number one, that's not exactly the biggest school for producing talented football players, but also when you got a size of 6'7", 255 pounds, and then you run a 4.55 in the 40, you turn some heads. So a spectacular athlete, got a lot of ability, tested through the roof. I mean, just some of the things that his 40, was the top 93 percentile. His shuttle top at 4.12, 94 percentile. His 10-yard split, 1.57, 88 percentile. His wingspan, 97 percentile at 83. His vertical, 40 inches on his vertical, that's 99 percentile. Broad jump, 128, 98 percentile. Through the roof. And once again, 3-cone, a Kyle Shanahan loves, 6.87, 92 percentile. The dude is a physical freak, and he turned everyone's heads big time with how he performed at the combine. Here's the issue, though. He's had some injuries. So Zach Koontz is one of those guys that, yeah, he's a freak of nature. He starts giving you those Rob Gronkowski feels as far as height and size and what he could potentially be. I don't think he's as smooth as an athlete as Josh Weil, even though he's faster than Weil. His 3-cone is better than Weil. Watching them on the field, Koontz looks a little more herky-jerky. But I do think he's a very, very solid player. And he's got all that ability and all that size, to be able to make plays. 6'7" is a tough matchup for anybody, but especially if he's matched up on, a safety that's 6 foot. You're talking a lot of difference between the two guys. But one of those guys that has really good hand-eye coordination, pretty good body control, so he's able to make plays on bad throws, which is beneficial to a quarterback. You want your tight end to be a safety blanket, and he can do that. Once again, he's another guy that's got pretty good acceleration off the ball. I like him. He's one of those guys that can be a problem if he's going deep because of the size. You're not going to get big time separation, but he can create a little bit of separation just with his ultimate size and long arms. So those are things that he does well. Here's the problem. He's not going to be a good blocker, especially initially. There's no real, ability there to be a extra blocker. If you're putting him into a Travis Kelce role where he's not going to be expected to block, he's going to go play in the power slot. He fits at a high level. So Koontz is one of those interesting guys that I don't think he's a complete tight end. But would the 49ers be interested in going, with a guy that's a non-complete tight end? Now, we've been talking about some of the guys, and Will Mallory's another guy that I talked about earlier, the star player for me. And why is Koontz not a star player compared to Mallory? Well, I think the reason is because I think Mallory can improve as a blocker. I don't know for sure that Koontz is going to be able to handle that. The injury concerns also bother me. So, to me, this is a guy that I like. If the 49ers took a flyer on him and he was available in the 5th round, wouldn't think twice about him. I think he's got a lot of upside. But I think for a 3rd-round comp pick, it would kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit, just with the mere fact is he an upgrade over Ross Dwelley in the passing game? Yes. Is he going to block better than Ross Dwelley? No. And Charlie Warner, it definitely can't block better than. So I think those are some of the things that I worry about him. So some of his inconsistencies as well. And then even though he ran a 4.5, where I talked about Mallory, you see the 4.5 on film. I didn't feel like you saw the 4.5 on film with Zach Koontz. But Koontz is a solid prospect with a lot of upside. The fact that you're that big means you're going to get a lot of people's attentions. And I guarantee those combine numbers were waking up a lot of people. They were like, whoa, this dude is ridiculous. And I think that, that's one thing that the 49ers definitely have to upgrade is that room. You could do with an athletic freak like Zach Koontz. Just where exactly would you do that? How exactly would you go about it? Now, one guy that's been a huge fan, or that the 49ers fans have been a huge fan of, has been Payne Durham. Payne Durham has definitely gotten the attention of San Francisco 49er fans. He's a guy that's been fun to watch, and there's some question marks, of course, around Payne Durham. But Durham he's got some real ability to him. He's out of Purdue, 6'6", 253 pounds. He's got the size. He's a big dude. Here's the problem. He ran a 4.87 at the combine. 4.87 is pretty slow. I mean, at my fastest, I ran a 4.9. So me and Payne Durham are pretty close to the same. He was 250 when he ran his. I was about 290 when I ran mine. So you can see there's a little bit of that problem there with the speed. It was one thing I noticed too was when I watched this film was I thought there was a little bit of lack of creation of separation. Now, he couldn't separate from defenders very consistently, but he did use his body, use his big 6'6", 250-pound frame to shield defenders, get in between them, make catches. Used a pretty good radius too for his wingspan. I thought he made good catches, snatched balls out of the air, had good hands. I like that about him. I do think he's an upgrade over Charlie Warner. I think he's an upgrade over Ross Dwelley. So to me, he would make sense for the 49ers to draft. So even though I have question marks around his speed, about him being a top end tight end, I think he would be a solid number 2 behind George Kittle because I do think he's a run pass threat. I do think that about him. So to me, Payne Durham is a solid option for the 49ers. So what are some of his strengths? We talked earlier about, just him having the combination of size and speed. But he sometimes can do a pretty good job of, getting off the ball well. So I like the fact that he's able to get releases, get off the ball and create some separation that way. He has to be a savvy route runner because he just doesn't have the speed to be able to separate consistently. He plays very well over the middle, is willing to make contested catches over the middle and take on contact. He's got good hands that we talked about earlier, snatching the ball out of the air. And then when it comes to his blocking, the fact that he's not only just an inline blocker, but he's one of those guys that blocks 20, 30 yards down the field. He gets in the mix no matter what. He blocks to the whistle. That fits Kyle Shanahan's system. That fits what they're looking for in a player. To me, Payne Durham, checks a lot of boxes for the San Francisco 49ers. So I think that he would be a target for them. Once again, third round might be a little early, but if you didn't think you could wait until the fifth round and you took him, I don't think he would make me bat an eye just because you would get a solid number 2 behind George Kittle. I would feel more confident in him than Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelley. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to do is improve the position, and he would definitely do that. So the only weakness that I can really say that bothers me the most is you would never have to worry about if you're an opposing team of Payne Durham going down the field and stretching the defense. So if you're going against a Tampa 2 defense or a cover 2 defense, so say a cover 2, you got those 2 deep safeties and you're trying to run, a skinny post up the seam. Payne Durham is maybe not the best guy to do that. He's not going to be able to get that separation. Like we talked about the Tampa 2, he would not be able to outrun a middle linebacker as they're getting their drop down the middle of the field. So to me, there are some things that make him fall down the list a little bit. But, he's still a solid option for the 49ers. And I think if they went ahead and went with him, I think I would be okay with it. So Payne Durham is a fan favorite, I know. And I think the 49ers will take a look at it. And if he falls into the right spot, they'll definitely be willing to get him. So next up is Penn State tight end Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange, 6'4", 253 out of Penn State. Really good athlete, 4.7 on the 40, pretty good for his size. He moved good. He looks a lot more fluid than that speed on film, which I always enjoy. He does a really good job of getting off press coverage, and he has very good hands and balance to be able to fight and get separation in his routes. He's a good blocker. I mean, a very good blocker. So we talked about Payne Durham being a 49er type player. Strange is also one of those guys. So he brings a lot of value to what the 49ers want to do in the run game. He's also a catch and run threat. He catches the ball, seamlessly transitions to a runner, and then has good vision in the open field to be able to make things happen. To me, he's a guy that, fits kind of what the 49ers want to do as far as balance. Again, talking about adding in guys who are threats in the passing game and the blocking game. To me, Brenton Strange is one of those guys. He's really close to being a star player, but he is a square player because he definitely fits the 49ers scheme the same way Payne Durham did. He has a good, sense for his route running. He does a pretty good job. He's not a pure, clean route runner, but he's very well developed compared to some in the draft. I like that about him. Wonder how he would hold up, blocking play in and play out. But I think he's pretty beast. And then Him blocking downfield the way Payne Durham loves to go downfield and block. That's the same thing you get out of Brenton Strange. This guy's a nasty blocker. I think it would fit the way the 49ers like to go about their tight ends blocking. I think they could feed off of him. And, as we see Jawan Jennings potentially, transitioning out in the next couple of years, having a tight end that you could put in the power slot that could still block could be important. It could also make the 49ers put other teams, keep them in their base personnel set, and then create mismatches. So those are some things. Some of the things he needs to work on, like I kind of mentioned earlier, becoming a sharper route runner could be very important for him. And then also, just him being able to get off the line of scrimmage at times can be a problem because of his strength. He only benched 225 8 times, which not the strongest tight end that you will see for sure. So I think that he's one of those guys that I think the 49ers could be interested in. I think he will be around in the 5th or 6th round. There would be a tremendous amount of value for Brenton Strange in that area. That's where his value is the biggest, 5th, 6th round. The 49ers would be getting an absolute gem. They've had pretty good success with 5th round tight ends so far. Getting George Kittle was a huge, huge get for them. So to me, Brenton Strange would make sense in that area. Next up, Noah Gendorf. He's a fun tight end to watch. He's got a lot of ability. He's out of North Dakota State, and a lot of people have really started to like him a lot. 6'6", 263 pounds, ran a 4.71. So he's got the size. He's got the athletic ability. One thing he did a lot that might fly under the radar because of the 4.7 speed was he was a deep threat for North Dakota State. He liked to get behind them and make plays. And we know that they have, a lot of times big time offenses that get down the field. So he did not do a lot in his last year in college, which, it's one of those things where the production's just not there. He played 3 games and had 6 catches for 74 yards. So he's definitely not coming off production wise a really, really big season. I think you're, just projecting on what he could be. And so, how that can go. So this makes him a later round guy, in my opinion. I think if he'd had a really big season, they could have proved exactly, what he was. But he's very comfortable running. You can see him move well. He's smooth. He has long arms, and he catches the ball. He snatches out of the air. Does a pretty good job. So he's a good catcher of the football. He catches it well in traffic. Is able to protect himself, but he's not afraid to take hits, and he takes chances. And I think I like a guy that's willing to go over the middle and take chances and be willing to take on contact. So I like him enough. He has good enough speed with that 4.7 to be able to potentially get down the field. We talked about him being a vertical threat earlier, and I think there is some optimism, even though at his size, he's a pretty good size guy already at 263. With a 6'6" frame, you could probably put more weight on him, and he could be even more dynamic already. So I wonder, how he will be in the blocking game. Right now, he's not great, but he could definitely get better at that, and that's something I want to see him get better. Also, where you see Will Mallory and Brenton Strange and some of those guys look explosive off the ball. You don't see that from Gendorf. He doesn't look explosive when he's going to get the football. So that's something he could improve on, and I think he could get better at it. But to me, he's a good prospect. I think if the 49ers were able, to pick him up in the 6th round, I think that's kind of where I think his sweet spot would be. I do think some teams would be willing to take him in the 5th, but I think lack of production and then some of the question marks overall about him make him a last pick of the 49ers last pick in the 5th round, or potentially a 6th round would be kind of where I would target him. And then then he could fit in solid, but I think he's a 2 or 3 tight end in the league. Next up though is Braden Willis out of Oklahoma. And this guy's an exciting player, fun to watch. Started to get some attention from 49ers pundits recently. 6'4", 241 pounds. He ran a 4.75. So speed pretty equivalent to what you were getting from Gendorf, where Gendorf was 6'6" and had a 263 frame. So you can see a little bit different there. But he's a talented player, where Gendorf only played in 3 games. Braden Willis played in all 12 games, had 35 catches for 445 yards and 7 TDs playing for the Oklahoma Sooners. So you see the disparity as far as production in their last season, Once again, another guy that, shows the ability to make catches with his hands, not use his body. He's very good with his body control, being able to track footballs and make catches. He's a quick athlete, so he looks like a receiver when he's out there. He just has that body frame that makes you think he's a power slot, a big guy. He could, continue to get better at route running and creating space and coverage, but he does a pretty good job right now compared to some of the tight ends in this draft. And I think he's one of those guys that that if you throw the football to him, he's probably going to come down to it, come down with it. So I'm very excited about that. I like the fact he tries and works really hard at blocking, which means he could improve and get better. I don't think he's bad by any means, but the fact his willingness to block is evident on film with him, continuing to move on past one guy, two guys, getting to that second level and going after blocks. So to me, he's a guy that I think could be better because he's a willing blocker. And then I really like his fluidity in his hips, the way he moves, his bend as he's getting into his breaks. He looks like a fluid athlete. So to me, I think he could get better at route running. And we know how the 49ers really push route running amongst their receiving threats. So I think he's a guy that right now is not a finished product, but could have great upside on the other end. So what are some of his weaknesses? Once again, just comfort in sitting down in the zone. We see that with a lot of these young tight ends. Where do they feel comfortable finding these areas in the zone? And then you can't really drift in the NFL, because when you drift in the NFL, you allow a linebacker to be able to, cover you, or you drift into coverage. That's how you get interceptions. So that feel is something he's going to have to work on. And I think that, right now he's the guy that could improve the blocking, which we talked about earlier. But I like him overall. To me, Braden Willis is a guy that I'm a fan of. And I think late in this draft, he could be a potential gem for the 49ers if they waited to get, a tight end late. They could get someone earlier. Getting even two tight ends in this draft, I don't think is out of the question. And I think that was something that Adam Peters discussed, them, doubling up at edge, doubling up at tight end is a possibility with the depth at the position. Next up is not a guy I've talked about a whole lot on this channel, but out of Baylor, it's Ben Sims. I got to watch film of him and actually, very much enjoyed it. 6'5", 254 out of Baylor. He ran a 4.57. The speed is there. I mean, you had, Will Mallory, Zach Koontz, and Ben Sims were the three fastest at the combine. You throw in Laporta at 4.59. Those are your 4.5 tight ends. And he's got the size and speed combination. 6'5", 254 is very good. 40 time is one of the best, amongst tight ends, especially in the draft. So you're getting a very talented player. What did he do in 2022? He played in 11 games. He had 31 catches for 255 yards. He had 3 TDs. So a guy that was productive in his last season. And so he was a guy that was fun to watch. I seen him making plays in the red zone. Being able to find separation was something he could do a pretty good job. So I liked him. Once again, another guy with good hands. Seen him make catches over his head, especially the red zone balls that would have flew out of the end zone. He was able to get it with. But he was a smooth, fluid athlete. So he definitely looked good. Was able to get defenders, weight going the wrong way and be able to produce open separation to be able to make plays. So I like that overall. His body control was good going up for the football. He looked very comfortable. He looked like a healthy, smooth athlete. So he's a guy that I really, really like. And I think that he's a guy that can make contested catches. So we've talked about this a little bit with some of the guys. Some people have it. They're contested catches guys. They can make plays in traffic, and I think he's one of those guys. So I like him a lot. I think that he would make a lot of sense for the 49ers in the 5th round. The speed, the size combination, the way we talked about Will Mallory earlier, I think Ben Sims is one of those guys that, the 49ers could definitely target. Some of the negatives about it, sometimes he can't get the separation that you're hoping. Once again, he's another guy that, isn't able to take that vertical stretch. So you worry about him against like a Tampa 2 or something like that. But he does have 4.5 speed, so maybe it's something within technique that he's still looking to translate into the NFL. But so far, that 4.5 speed hasn't shown on film, and that's something that he's going to have to really show as far as his skill set. But I like him a lot. I think his hands are good. To me, he would be solid for the 49ers. He's a strong guy. So, yeah, I'd be interested for the 49ers to take him, especially in the 5th round. He'd make a lot of sense. He's a guy that's kind of jumping up my board as I continue to watch him just kind of catch a game here and there. And it's like, oh wow, I kind of like this guy. He's got some techniques and stuff that I'm a fan of. So next up is going to be a guy that's picking up steam kind of in 49er land, and that is Davis Allen out of Clemson. Davis Allen out of Clemson is a guy that wasn't really on my radar, but then I started seeing people talking about him. Jordan Elliott was talking about Davis Allen, and he's 6'6", 245 pounds out of Clemson. Um, he's a pretty interesting prospect. Yeah, he runs a 4.84, so it's another guy like Payne Durham that's not really burning it up. Unlike Durham, who's 3 cones better, you're not going to see it here. Davis Allen, doesn't have any of the measurables you're looking for. As a senior, he played 13 games at 35 catches for 394 yards, very productive, 4 touchdowns. So when they threw him the football, he caught it. He did a very good job in that area, and he's good at getting to the football, making catches. One thing I noticed around him is he had good awareness of where he was. Sidelines, he was able to get his feet in. So he shows those types of things. He's a fluid mover, which means you can tell he's athletic, able to get open, especially over the middle of the field. And then when he gets there, he makes the catch, and he has pretty good catch radius with his long arms. So to me, I think he's a talented catcher of the football. The speed is a little bit of a worry for me. So I think that's something he needs to work on, but he's one of those guys, another effort blocker. He works really hard, works on getting the second level, which is important. Second level, of course, being linebackers and such on a defense. Being able to get there and then make those blocks is important in the 49ers zone scheme, and he has showed willingness to do that. So I think he could be a solid player in the NFL when you combine his ability over the middle, catch the football, his tracking along the sidelines, and then his willingness to block. Those are what you're looking for over, for a tight end. Now, what are some of the weaknesses? I think it's the speed and athleticism, being able to, take the top off the defense, going against a safety, or getting vertical against a Tampa 2. I think those are some of the things that you really have to worry about. I think most of it, because of that, limits his route tree. So I think those are his concerns, but I think he would be a threat in the red zone. We talked about earlier, he's a balanced tight end, able to not only catch the football, but also block as well. So to me, Davis Allen, once again, late in the draft, and we've seen some rank him very, very low. I think he, in the late 5, early 6, is a solid pick there that the 49ers could definitely go with. So to me, he could be there. This is another one of those tight ends that fit what the 49ers like to do. Just, is it somebody that they're going to target, or they want to go tight end a little bit earlier? I think that sweet spot is kind of in that 5th round, and I don't know if Davis Allen will be high enough on the board as some of the other guys, that are going to be there. So yeah, I like him a lot. So next up, let's talk about Kamori Gamble. This one might be a little bit interesting, um, because I don't know how many people have been talking about Kamori Gamble, but he's a solid player out of UCF. Originally was with Florida. He's 6'4", 244, a very athletic guy. He ran a 4.55, so another one of those really speed guys in the draft. For me, he's a guy that's really fun to watch on film. Very explosive, very exciting. As a senior, he played in 9 games. He had 7 catches for 113 yards. So not a lot to write home about, 1 touchdown as far as that. But you go back and you watch some of the Florida film, and you see a guy that was a lot more productive. And his numbers at Florida in his last year there, 13 games, 31 catches, 409 yards with 4 touchdowns. So he definitely did a very good job when he was at Florida. He's a spectacular athlete. I think he's kind of flying under the radar because he didn't have a big year with UCF, but his athleticism definitely shows. I like the combination of size, strength, and speed together. He's one of those guys that attacks the ball in the air, does a good job that way. And then I think he also breaks a lot of tackles. And when you're talking about a player that can create and make big plays or convert on 3rd down, you want a guy like Kamori Gamble that can do that. And to me, that's where he fits, the 49er scheme. And then he's got that really good catch radius to be able to go up, get the football, and bring it down. He's a good blocker, very, very good blocker. And so he adds a lot of value to the run game. We talk about it again with the 49ers, a guy that can play inline, a guy that can do both, block and catch the football. That would make them more active in the play action game. So to me, he's very, very good. I like him a lot. Um, their question marks are about him or about separation, but when you see the speed, you wonder if that's route concepts or just even how he finishes his routes, how he is at the top of his stem, being able to, manipulate defensive backs, get them to flip their hips. He should have the speed and athletic ability to do that. So far, it hasn't worked. It could be because he's not, getting at the proper form. So, I mean, to me, he's a very, very solid player. I've seen him mocked, in the 7th round. To me, I think Kamari Gamble's a 5th round pick. I would be willing to take him with one of those fifths. I like him more than some of the other guys just from the mere athletic ability, that I've seen so far. So to me, he was a guy that I like a lot, and I would definitely add him. Now, one guy that I forgot to add on here was that I want to talk about is Blake Whiteheart. I don't know how I forgot Blake Whiteheart. Blake Whitehart's one of my favorite tight ends in the draft. He's going to go late. He's 6'4", 247 out of Wake Forest. He ran a 4.7, but you just see solid. That every time I see this dude, I'm just like, man, this guy's a solid player. In 2022, he had a 23 catch of 287 yards, 3 touchdowns. I like him a lot. It just is so good. And when you listen and watch him play, he enjoys physical confrontation of blocking. He goes after everyone. He doesn't care if they're bigger, if they're faster. He has good pop and good strength. To me, he's a fit for the 49ers in all areas. He gets off the ball quickly. He has good hands. He's good at that kind of thing. He does have really good acceleration for the guy his size. He loves to get downfield to make blocks. Will block multiple people. So he is really, really good and fits what the 49ers do. I think he will be a guy that, acclimates very well to the NFL. So I like him. I like his speed, the 4.7. He plays 4.7. He looks like it. He looks quick. So to me, I like him. Most of the questions, about him are about his, some of his creating speed with his athleticism. But to me, Blake Whiteheart is a great tight end in this draft. I like him a lot. For a while there, he was rolling with Will Mallory as one of my top tight ends in the draft, and I still value him that. You're probably going to see him go. People are going to talk about him being 7th rounder undrafted. I would easily put Blake Whiteheart in the 5th round just on skill and technique alone. People will probably disagree with me, and that's okay. I don't mind at all because I think Blake Whiteheart is going to be a solid NFL tight end, and that's really what you're looking for. I think he would be a bona fide fit for the 49ers. If the 49ers walked out of this draft with Will Mallory, the speed, athleticism, being able to create with the passing game, and Blake Whiteheart, who can do all the other and has the attitude like George Kittle, but can still catch the ball and move the sticks, I think they would have a 1-2 punch that I've been looking for a long time. So they're spectacular. Now, on to the next guy, Daniel Barker. Interesting guy out of Michigan State, 6'4", 241 pounds. Now, he didn't always play at Michigan State. He played at Illinois as well. But he's a guy that's, he's got a lot of strength, got a lot of ability. He moves the sticks. Let's see what he did at first off. He had in 2021, he had 18 catches for 202 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then when he transferred to Michigan State, he had 12 games. He had 21 catches for 239 yards with 2 touchdowns. So a little bit more production in his last year. But I like this guy. He's got good footwork. He's got good change of direction, which I like. Gets off the ball very quickly. He's a guy that looks like a natural athlete, a fluid mover. So I like him a lot. He's going to be able to make plays over the middle of the field. Long arms. I mean, it seems like this is what we're talking about with all the tight ends, right? Long arms, ability to create over the middle, not afraid to take contact. But when you get guys like this that are able to also run through arm tackles, those are important. Those are those extra momentum plays that the 49ers build on that George Kittle and Deebo Samuel have built their careers on. And when I see guys like that, I get excited. And he's one of those guys that do that. And he's got really good hands, and he's a guy that could create. I think he would be a red zone threat in the NFL. He is definitely more of a project than some. He's got some work to do, but I do like him. And I think that, his question marks about his speed, and some of his release things could definitely make him a guy the 49ers would have to work on. I think he's going to be late in this draft. So if the 49ers, thought that he was a guy that they could take a chance on, 7th round would make a lot of sense. I'd put a 6th round grade on him. But if they got him in the 6th or 7th round, I'd be very excited about his upside. And even if he's an undrafted free agent, I would be all over that because I think he's got, a lot of ability. I really do. I think he's a very, very solid player and could be a solid player for the 49ers. So tight ends all over the place. Of course, there were tight ends I didn't talk about in this episode. Some of them I'm going to go ahead and talk about in a draft gems video. Others were just not going to be able to be drafted by the 49ers because of, how good they are. Some of the guys are just out of the reach of the 49ers. But if there was a player that I didn't talk about in this draft that is a tight end that you really like or you really want, let me know. Hit me up, 49erscutback at gmail.com. Find me on Twitter, 49erscutback, or on Instagram, 49erscutback. And let me know. Let me know which guys, I didn't talk about that you like. You could also do it in the comment section down below. And we'll get into it. I'll break them down and go through it. I did watch every other tight end. These were the ones I chose to talk about because I thought they were more 40-yard fits or guys the 49ers could take a chance on because of some of their physical upside. But I am curious what everyone had to think. Let me know what you think of the episode. Like it says there, like and subscribe to the channel. More draft content will be coming your way. Been a little bit tougher right now. I'm moving, I'm getting married, but I'm trying to do as much as I can. I really enjoy doing the content. And of course, I want to always stay in touch with what the 49ers are doing and you, the 49ers fan. So thank you so much for watching 49ers Cutback. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are the absolute best. You guys always come through and do so many good things. So I'm very thankful for all of you, and I'm thankful for everyone that has subscribed to this channel. And if your continued support is definitely appreciated. Of course, if you want extra content, there is content available on Patreon. Hopefully, I'm going to be getting even more over there. I have more draft content that I need to drop over there. But, it's one of those times of the year, but we'll be getting to it. I can't wait. As we get closer to the draft, I'm going to ramp up coverage even more. You guys all are the best. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers.